Today, I'm going to discuss about the origin of, sorry, today I'm going to discuss about the origin of Hindu philosophical thoughts. A study of the early philosophical and religious writings of the Hindus indicates that the Indo-Aryans who lived in ancient times in the valley of the Indus and the Ganga were keen and thoughtful observers of both the outer and the inner world. One of the things that greatly impressed them was the changeability of everything. Changeability of everything in nature. Oceans, mountains, rivers, trees, plants, herbs, birds, animals, insects, the sun, the moon, the stars, in short, all animate and inanimate objects are subject to the law of change. Clear? And this is equally true of the states of the mind. Happiness is followed by suffering. Joy is followed by sorrow. Serenity is followed by restlessness. Courage is followed by fear. Exaltation is followed by depression. Of every experience, both subjective and objective, it may be truly said, even this shall pass away. You know, in Buddhistic period, one king was very depressed, very, very depressed. He wanted to see or hear one sentence which should be the most practical, the best, which is incomparable. And he announced that who can give this, who can tell me these things? I will give my half of the kingdom to that person. From the kingdom, hundreds of poets and philosophical persons started coming. Even from neighboring countries also, people started coming. But the king was not happy. In this way, days are passed, weeks are passed, months are passed. Nothing happened. The king was always depressed and mourned. What will happen? What will happen? So, one day, one Buddhist monk was passing through, and king's very favorite minister was also going through the going on the way. So the sannyasi or the ascetic person asked How is the king? The minister narrated everything else. The monk told, oh, only these things. I can tell the king what he is asking. So the sannyasi was brought to the court. He told, I want to stay one night. Then in the next morning I will tell. At midnight, he asked a piece of paper from the king. And he told, yes, if you like it, you can like it, but I don't want any kingdom of yours because I am a monk. I'm a sannyasi. So early in the morning I will leave your palace and kingdom. And after my going, you should open this piece of paper. King was agreed. Early in the morning, the king saw there is no sannyasi. He left a piece of paper. And what was written on that piece of paper? ये भी नहीं रहेगा. Even this shall pass away. The king was surprised. His face was very happy. Yes, this is the golden words I was asking for. Nothing is permanent in this jagat. That is why this jagat's another name is samsara. From Sri Dhatu, samsara comes. Samsarati iti samsara, which is constantly changing. That is called samsara. And so a question naturally was raised. Is change itself the ultimate reality? Or is there an unchanging essence, the ground of all change? Like change, suffering too was observed to be a universal phenomenon. No one escapes its cruel jaws. Rich and poor, high and low, old and young, learned and ignorant, righteous and unrighteous, all embodied beings suffer. Asked by a king about the meaning of life, a sage once replied, a man is born, he suffers, and he dies. Sorrow, indeed, is the price of our birth on earth. There are three kinds of sorrows. Our Hindu philosophers have segmented that. You can ask that whole day or throughout my life we have suffered so many trouble and we were sad. And only three. Yes, all the sorrows, all the problems are divided into three parts. One is adhyatmic. It afflicts a man's body or his mind by his own self. It may be caused, second one is adhidaivika. So what is adhidaivika? The adhidaivika is caused by other human beings. Third one is adhi bhautika. It may cause by the animal world or by such uncontrollable cosmic phenomena as rain and drought, heat and cold, earthquake and storm. 2,500 years ago, a great Indian seer, Bhagavan Buddha, the enlightened one, declared that if all the tears that had flowed from human eyes since the beginning of creation were gathered together, they would exceed the waters of the ocean. The Four Noble Truths, which he discovered and announced as the basis of his religion, are all related to suffering. Dukkham, dukkham, sarvam dukkham. Everything is nothing but in the form of suffering. First one, it exists, means suffering's existence. Number two, the cause of the existence of sufferings. Number three, the suffering's cessation. And number four, the way leading to suffering cessations, the cessation of the suffering. So any glimpses of happiness that may seem to brighten our days on earth are both fugitive and deceptive. Every enjoyment is, is coming by a haunting fear. In Vairagya Shatakam, a very beautiful sloka is there, whose translation is, the rich are afraid of thieves, the beautiful one is afraid of deformity, the healthy one is afraid of disease, the learned one, panditas, are afraid of rivals, the aristocrats are afraid of dishonor, the virtuous also are afraid of slander. Yet man somehow forgets this truth in the one very beautiful English word I got yesterday, rhapsody, Rhapsody, rhapsody of his fear-haunted and momentary happiness. So, To illustrate the elusive nature of human happiness, Bhagavan Buddha narrated the vivid story of a man who, while roaming in the forest, was discovered and hotly pursued by a tiger. Now, by the grace of WhatsApp and Facebook, story the they have that a man who was roaming in the forest was discovered and hotly pursued by a tiger. He suddenly came to the brink of a deep precipice. The ugly beast was about to pounce. With only a split second for decision, the man perceived a vine hanging down the cliff, पर्वत का जो ये होता है cliff, and catching hold of it, gave a jump. But the creeper was not long enough to land him on the ground. Looking down, he beheld just below him a second tiger, almost within reach, viewing him with glowering eyes that, oh, come down, oh my beloved, food, come down. The first tiger, meanwhile, was still roaring at him from above. And then, as though his circumstances were not precarious enough, two mice, one black and one white, began to gnaw, began to eat at the vine that he was clutching for his very life. It was then that he spied a strawberry growing on the side of the cliff, very ripe. Just think the scene. A person was chased by a tiger. To save his own life, he jumped from the mountain, and the creeper was there. He just catch hold to save himself. And he saw just below another tiger is waiting for him. Two mice started cutting the creeper, what he was holding up to save his life. And suddenly he saw a strawberry, very ripe, very luscious, and just within his reach, he stretched forth his hand, plucked the fruit, put it in his mouth, and exclaimed with delight, "Ah, how perfectly delicious. This is our life. If all our joy on earth is momentary and illusory, what is the basis of the illusion? Can there be illusion without a background or substratum? And how many one put an end to the suffering and attain peace? Or is there any peace at all? Another word I can tell you. Constant presence or ubiquitous presence of death stirred the thoughts of the ancient Hindus. Understood? Does death mean the complete annihilation of a man? Or is there something within him that survives the destruction of the body? And if death puts an end to the whole man, then why is he born at all? What purpose does one serve on earth? If the flame of life is snuffed out at a tender age, what is the meaning of death and how is it related to life? Is there any way to overcome it? The early Indo-Aryans had an, insatiable appetite for knowledge. Nothing short of omniscience would satisfy them. One reads in the Vedas of a disciple who asked his teacher in Mundaka Upanishad, you will get, Kasminnu bhagavo vijñātam sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. What is it, O my revered sir? By the knowing of which everything in the universe can be known. Like the Greek philosophers, the Hindus first hoped to win knowledge by the analysis of external nature. Extraordinarily detailed and poetical descriptions of the objects of nature appear in the ancient Vedic literature. But after a time, the futility of such an effort to gain omniscience became apparent. One cannot adequately know an extremely small part of the earth through the study even of a whole lifetime. And there spread before our vision the sun, the moon, and the stars without number. Presently, however, a clue was found to the solution of the mystical or the mystery of knowledge. The Hindu philosophers observed that by knowing the nature of clay, one knows the nature of everything made of clay. By knowing the nature of iron, one can know everything of the iron made by iron. By knowing the nature of gold, anyone can know the nature of everything made of gold. Is there not likewise, they ask, something that is the basic material of universe by the knowing of which everything in the universe will be known? The Chandogya Upanishad describes a dialogue between Narada and Sanat Kumar. Narada approached Sanat Kumar and said, "Teach me, sir." Sanat Kumara said, to him, please tell me what you know. Afterwards, I'll tell you what is beyond. Narada said, I know the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, history, mythology, grammar, the rules for the sacrifices for the ancestors, the science of numbers, the science of portents, the science of time, logic, ethics, etymology, the science of elementary science of war, the science of astronomy, the science of snake charming, and the fine arts. All these I know, sir. But, sir, with all this, I am like one who knows only the words of the sacred books. I do not know the self. I have heard from men like you that he who knows the self overcome grief. Tarati sokam atmavid. Sir, O my teacher, O my guru, please do help me over this grief of mine. Sanat Kumara said to him, whatever you have read is only a name. The search for the great cause is linked with the search into the nature of man himself. Is man only a physical being or has he a spiritual basis? The study of man opened before the Hindus a new vista. How does the mind think? Is the power to think inherent in the mind itself? Or does another extraneous power impel it to think? What is set in motion in life breathe? Who engages the tongue to speak? And the ears and eyes to hear and see? In Kenopanishad and Mundakopanishad, we got the same point. The ancient Hindus wondered whether there was a first principle or ultimate reality underlying the outside world, and also whether there was such a thing underlying man himself. If so, were the two the same? It was apparent that the question that gained the Hindus living on the banks of the Ganga and the Indus in that prehistoric time could be adequately answered only by a true knowledge of man, the universe, and ultimate reality. These then engaged their attention and formed the subject matter of their philosophical systems. For centuries, they discussed these problems. In conferences and assemblies, in royal courts and sylvan retreats, around the sacred fires of the householders, and in the hermitages of monks, they tried to work out answers through the most rigorous reasoning. They sought light in the depths of meditation. Some inquiring about the first cause and the ultimate explanations of things in the outside world. thought that the gods, the different personified forms of universal consciousness, held the key to knowledge and happiness. So they worshipped with elaborate rituals the sun, the moon, the sky, and other deities, and sought to propitiate them with appropriate oblations. But it did not take them long to discover that as everything existing in time and space is doomed to die, even the gods too must die. And as all beings living in time and space are limited, even the gods also must be limited. It is said in one of the hymns of the Rig Veda concerning the creation and its cause. Who verily knows and who can hear declare it, whence it was born and whence comes this creation. The gods are later than this world's production. Who knows? Then when it first came into being, he, the first origin of this creation, whether he or she formed it all or did not form it, whose eye controls this world in highest heaven, he or she verily knows it, or perhaps he or she knows not. So it was clear to the Hindus that the gods cannot remove man's ignorance nor show him the way to blessedness and immortality. The problem of ultimate uh, reality, cannot be solved through study of or devotion to anything in the visible outside universe. Other seekers directed their attention to a different world, the inner world within man himself. By means of such spiritual disciplines as severe self-control and concentration, they discovered that the realm of the mind was infinitely more real, interesting, and deeper than the realm of gross physical matter. Thereafter, after, after patient search, they at last discovered the clue to the supersensuous truths relating to the self, the hereafter, man's destiny, and ultimate reality.